It's the Generations of Greatness game in Beaver Stadium. You know what, Todd? Trey thinks they named it after him.
I think we named it after our pre-show meetings. We look at each other and we say, Generations of Greatness.
Absolutely.
And you know, college football games are probably a little bit long, but if you stuck to the end, it was certainly worth the finish against Iowa.
Absolutely. I'm still recovering. My voice is still bad. You know, throwback games. Hopefully, it'll be a great game for Penn State. Hopefully, they're not going to bring back the haircuts of the 80s for the throwback game. Blue-white tailgate is next.
And welcome to the Blue White Tailgate Show. Steve Jones, Trey Bauer, and Todd Sadowski. Great to have you with us. Oh, what a finish! I'm sure that as someone who's played in national championship games, you were a calm sort.
I was not a calm sort. I was like freaking out, F-bombing my neighborhood. I was just insane, and it's just crazy. It was awesome.
And that was just after cutting the lawn.
Yeah.
I just wish we would have had a camera in the booth with that man over there, with Steve and Jack. I can only imagine what that was like, trying to keep your own calm within that craziness of that drive. And what an awesome job to compose themselves and to go on that finishing drive. I mean, it was just phenomenal moment.
Yeah, they practice it all the time. Wednesday's a big day to practice this, and they went out 12 plays, 80 yards, a minute 42. James Franklin on the drive.
You know, we were able to lean on our confidence from last year, and we've been in these situations all last year with a bunch of experienced players coming back. So it's not like one person just stood up. It's a sideline that believes that, you know, we're going to win every game we play. We're going to find a way to, you know, to gut it out and grind it out. And
82 Nebraska. Penn State had to make the drive to win at the end. Yours was actually more on defense because that Duffy Cobb's play against Maryland on the two-point conversion. Then you go to 94, the drive in Illinois. I mean, championship teams do these things, Todd.
Yeah, those are the moments that you don't know exactly what this drive is going to lead to for the end because it's so early in the season. But it gives them the opportunity. You don't have the opportunity without that particular drive. And Steve, we were talking about this before. It's not just the finishing play. It's not just the longest gaining play. It's all the little things that have to happen that you have to execute to make it all possible.
With the college football playoff now in, I look at this more as mini playoff games, which I've talked about on the show before. I feel like there's a survive and advance mode. Well, Penn State survived, advanced. Now they got Indiana coming up this week. I think that the playoff now, you have to almost take on that mentality.
Sure. I mean, the fact is that, you know, opening week of the Big Ten, you know, we're not playing Hofstra or, you know, Nassau Community College. We're actually playing Division I football teams. You know, the Big Ten is arguably the best conference in college football. And, you know, regardless of, you know, we don't know how Iowa's going to do this year, but the fact is that, you know, they're a Big Ten football team and they're very well coached.
And the other part of it, guys, just quick, is that was not a non-conference game that you can just check off. I mean, a conference loss is huge. You don't get two of those for the most part. You may get two losses during a season. It cost Penn State last year. Two conference losses, that's almost impossible to come back from to get to the championship game in your conference.
Exactly right, Todd. The Dr. Sobera momentum moment is coming up. May not be the one that you think. Brought to you by Sobera Weight Loss Systems. This actually is the one that put Iowa in front late in the game. And Akram Wadley, you know, we talk about Barkley. This guy's a heck of a player, too.
Yeah, I mean, he's got wheels. He's a very athletic guy. Obviously, he's from New Jersey. He's a great player. You know, we just didn't do very well on tackling on that particular play. But you know, you got to give credit where credit's due.
And why did we change it and make it the momentum play? Because it completely changed it the other direction. You never felt like Iowa was in danger of breaking into the end zone, and then all of a sudden you got a flash of what Wadley can do and what one mistake could cost you in that game.
Well, let's check in now with Allison Luthman with our PSECU pregame update.
Hey guys, welcome to your PSECU pregame update, bringing you everything you need to know before kickoff this Saturday. Penn State is strongly encouraging fans to clean up after yourselves after tailgates. There's blue and clear bags around the lots. Just put in all of your recyclables into those bags, seal it up, and someone will come pick it up for you at the end of the game. Do your part to keep the parking lot and the earth clean. Also, this week is the Generations of Greatness games. Both the players and cheerleaders will be wearing throwback uniforms. The differences on the players' uniforms are some of the numbers on the helmets. They'll have block letters on the jerseys, white stripes in the sleeves, many other elements that fans can check out. Also, the venue will be playing music from the 50s until now to take fans back in time. Also, just in case you missed it, we had to show you what is the most adorable touchdown scored in college football.
I like his pad level, James. Open field runner.
Yeah. Hey, look at him go. The 20. Wes, he might do it. Wes, he's going to do it. Oh, my goodness, buddy, do it. Do it. Do it. Touchdown. Oh, man, he's my favorite squirrel. Look at him. Oh, poor guy. He's tired. That's not a very good celebration. He doesn't work on his celebration.
Got worn out.
No, his score did not count, but I think it's safe to say that was one of the best highlights of that game. That's your PSECU pregame update. We'll see you on Saturday.
It's also the only good thing that happened at Louisville this week. All right, so let's run down Juwan Johnson and the Nittany Lions. They have to win it and then put the game behind them.
We kind of emphasize on just, keeping one game at a time. There's a lot of reflection on the past game. Obviously, the social media buzz and just all your friends talking about it. But honestly, I just try to keep a straight head. I have to focus on the next game. I know it was exciting. I know it was fun. I kind of want to reflect on it myself, but I have to focus on Indiana, to be honest with you.
And Indiana, over the years, has become a good football team. Not a great football team, but they are a good football team, Todd.
They're dangerous. They had Ohio State in trouble in week number 1 at halftime ahead. Had Penn State in trouble last year late into the game as well. This is a team that can score points and are improving on defense, which we're going to talk about a lot more later in the show.
Yeah, they defended them well last year.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that Indiana has some talented players. I don't think they have as many talented players as we do. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, whoever turns the ball over, is going to win the game, and talent obviously rises to the top.
And part of that talent is the Penn State offense. We'll talk about them after this. Well, we saw a little bit of 26 there. We'll talk about the offense. Let's get to the Penn State offense in a full screen look for you and let everybody know what we have there. Okay, 99 plays, 29 first downs. They had 579 yards and only 21 points, 19 by the offense. That doesn't jive.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting how, like, statistics, you can have statistics for anything. And the fact is 579 yards, you can go back and forth, how many first downs, whatever. The fact is it was the last play of the game for us to win this game, Todd. And, again, it's all about what ends up on the scoreboard.
It was the ultimate bend but don't break type of defense. They just kept coming up with clutch play after clutch play in their own zone, and they just couldn't plug it into the end zone and put them away. And they made them earn everything. They almost had 600 yards, but you felt like they had to work so hard for every one of those yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to the defense later, but the Penn State defense did not have a play in the red zone except for the 2-point conversions. Mm-hmm. Iowa didn't run a single play in the red zone all night long. All right, so let's get to the family clothesline player of the week. There was a lot of debate on this. In the end, the yelling and screaming of Trey Bauer said, "I think we've got to go with Saquon Barkley." Now, let me give you a stat on Barkley here, and I mentioned it during the meeting. He had 43 touches in this game. 28 runs like that one. He had 12 pass receptions, and he had 3 on returns. Of the 43, 21 of them gained 7 yards or better.
It's like so absurd to even say that. You said that in the meeting, and I just, I'm watching these highlights, and, it looks like the turf is the only one who could, stop him.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly Iowa couldn't stop him, and, he's obviously, in my opinion, the best player in college football.
Yeah, that's our family clothesline player of the week. The debate was intense, by the way. That's why we're a little late in getting to the show today. All right, so, what does that do for him? Nationally. People say we're at the 1/3 poll. There's so much to do. We talk about stuff that I think at the moment's irrelevant, but go ahead.
Well, the thing is, he doesn't have any competition at running back. So really, it's going to be a preference for a lot of the voters. Do you like the quarterback, a specific quarterback that may separate themselves from a pack of 3 or 4? Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Mason Rudolph had a down game. So he is the only running back. There's no other guy that's going to compare to him all year long. So I like his chances from that standpoint because he's a unique talent at that position and unquestionably the top running back in the country. The other quarterbacks, they still got to play it out.
Instead of pushing himself out of it, he vaulted himself deeply into it. I think that's where he is right now. So, all right, so now we get to the Joel Comfort drive of the game. Again, another intense debate. Trey wanted to use a 3 and out, but instead others won in this, and they decided to go with the 12-play, 80-yard drive. Okay, the patience on this is really important, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is you can't get ahead of yourself. I mean, literally, you've got more time than you kind of think about. Obviously, you prepare for this. You prepare, everyone has a 2-minute offense. McSorley using his feet here. I mean, you talk about a guy who's just a winner. I mean, the guy won 3 state championships in high school. He's got the it factor in spades.
Sure does. That we saw earlier, that big pass to Blacknall. That was a 4th down play. That was huge. Look at the pass protection by Fries. He dumps the ball off to Barkley here. Josie Jewell played a great game and could not handle Barkley on that play. Yeah. And then here's the game winner right here. They went with a tight formation. This was a shot right there. Now here's from the back of the end zone. Look at again, blitz pickup by Barkley on Josie Jewell.
Yep. What cracks me up about that play is if Johnson doesn't catch it, Hamilton does. I mean, it was in stride to 2 separate receivers, and I know they made a late adjustment for Johnson to take that to the post, take it to the inside route. And Trace was 31 of 48 for the game. His numbers were good, but just never felt like he was in complete control of what was happening out there until the very end. And when you talk to all of his teammates and you say, what is it about Trace McSorley? They don't say, oh, it's a big arm. Oh, his running ability. He's a winner. He's just a flat out a winner, and he's in control of that huddle, Trey, all the time. And that makes a huge difference offensively or defensively if you got a guy in that kind of control of a game.
Yeah, first regulation walk-off winner since 1929 against Lafayette on a punt return.
Did you do that game, Steve, or?
I was a color analyst in the game. I was actually the sideline reporter, kind of working my way up at the time.
Interning in.
Did they have TV back then, Steve?
I was the cub reporter wearing a jacket on the sideline, little hat, banner. But because obviously you've had walk-off winners before, but they're all in overtime now. Mm-hmm. So you've got all those, like Barkley scored against Minnesota last year in overtime as a walk-off. All right, Juwan Johnson. I think a lot of us thought, okay, who's the guy that can step up for Godwin? And he had a really good spring. And he's been good so far this season, but, I mean, what does this do for the guy's confidence?
Well, there's a signature moment for you. It only took 4 games for it to happen. And we talked last week on the show about wide receivers gaining some separation, and I just talked about that late change to get to the inside and get separated and give him just that little bit of edge. He's a big, tall receiver, great hands. That hasn't been a question from day one from what we've seen from him all year long, and he certainly reeled that one in traffic to win it.
And Allison Luthman takes a closer look at Juwan Johnson.
Juwan Johnson scored Saturday's game-winning touchdown and set career highs. This comes after a year focused on self-development and growth. James Franklin and Juwan himself talked about this at Tuesday's press conference.
I think the biggest thing with Juwan is confidence and experience. He's gained those things over the last couple of years being here at Penn State. Obviously, he's just one of those guys. You walk through the weight room and he's in there getting extra work. You look out in the field, he's getting extra work. He's with Trace watching film. He's just a guy that's really matured.
Just dedicate myself and kind of invest in myself even more, just solely on. Whether that's reading the Bible or whether that's just doing extra hours on the field or just catching extra jugs, stuff like that. Just investing in myself, trying to be a better person, a better athlete.
That was Johnson's first career touchdown, and he had a career high 7 catches. Guys.
And 92 yards, Allison, also career high for him in that game. Couple of interesting parts. Red zone and third down. It's almost mysterious that with everything Penn State has that this would be a couple of issues. At this point.
I mean, you would think with all the talent that we do have, the way we march up and down the field, for whatever reason, we've had problems with this last year, continue to have problems, and the fact is they got to figure it out, Todd, or they're not going to run the table.
Especially
for sure.
3rd and short. It's not just 3rd and longs. You expect to have trouble with some of those situations, but it's 3rd and short. There's not really go-to plays or go-to
third and long,
situations.
they're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like
Yeah.
33% third and long. You could live with that.
They seem more comfortable in the third and longs.
Yeah.
It's the third and shorts that they're just not quite converting. I'm not sure they're using Gesicki enough in those situations. I'm sure Joe Moorhead will find ways to involve their All-American tight end a little bit more in those situations and take advantage of some matchup disadvantages.
Yeah, it's just an odd, for this team that can move up and down the field, it's just one of those oddities in there, which you know is solvable, but it's just odd as the way it's played out. All right, coming up, we'll take a look at the Penn State defense. 8 3-and-outs they produced. They got a safety in the ball game. They only gave up 3 big plays, but they were 3 big plays. So we'll talk about the Penn State defense and what they've done in a moment as we continue with Blue White Tailgate after this. Why do you run that play? I mean, seriously. When he pitched the ball to Wadley, I can tell you exactly what I was thinking the second he pitched it. I said, this is a safety. The second he pitched it, I thought it was a safety. Well, we'll get to that.
Especially with the way things had been going with them getting in the backfield and penetrating past the offensive line.
I mean, that ball is a foot out of his hand. That ball's a foot out of his hand. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a safety because he's totally unblocked on that play. Yeah. So let's get to our family clothesline defensive player of the game. We'll go with the guy who created the safety, Sharif Miller. He really played well, wearing 19 as a tribute to Torrance Brown. He went out there as our family clothesline defensive player of the game and Penn State went 7 years between safeties. They now have 2 in 3 weeks. I mean, but that safety hung over this game the entire night. A lot of people didn't talk about it, but think about it. Iowa had to chase points when it was 15-13. They had to go for another 2-point conversion later, all because of this play.
Yeah.
Well, points were at a premium in this one, and so they'll take 2 points, no doubt about it. There's something about these Penn State-Iowa games where weird scores start to show up on the scoreboard, isn't it? And it was that way for a little while in this one, too. But, yeah, those 2 points were huge, no doubt about it, Steve.
I've done those games, Todd. Done those games. But, defensively, Miller's played really well. They were looking to see who would emerge as a top defensive end, as a rush threat and so forth. He's emerged as one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Miller is an athletic kid. He's worked really hard. I think it's almost overlooked that his athletic ability versus his technique. I mean, he's got very good technique, and athletically, he's one of the most talented guys we have on that defense.
I'll tell you, here's another move they made, though. They also took Kevin Givens and flipped him to a defensive end spot. Now, they still ran him at tackle when they ran with the 4 ends, but they flipped him out to defensive end. I thought that was a good move, Todd.
Well, the defensive line dominated that game, and I'm not so sure what was going on with Iowa as far as whether it was predictability, just execution on Penn State's behalf, but they could not run the ball for extended periods of time. And I know you joked about Trey wanting one of the drives, the 3-and-outs, to be one of the drives of the game. We couldn't do it because there was too many of them to choose from. There was 8 of them. I mean, it was amazing how quickly they were getting Iowa off the field.
All right, now you got to get ready for an Indiana team that they're coming off a good performance against Georgia Southern. Ellison, the freshman tailback, had a big game. Lego throws the ball well. They also do a lot of the back shoulder throws. Not easy to defend, and James Franklin says that matchup between wide receiver and DB is going to be important.
So I think those guys, having to defend those guys in practice all the time, I think helps. Does that mean that we're going to be completely prepared and ready for Simi Cobbs? We'll find out Saturday, but I do think, the accumulated reps that our guys have gotten going against big receivers in practice through camp and through the season so far, I think helps.
Then there's another interesting part. John Stroh, our producer, does a great job putting this together, put in a question of, do you pressure Richard Lego into mistakes? Which you would think until you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers. And one of them I bring up every week is what's your completion percentage against pressure? I just want to see how you react to it. For example, Nate Stanley going into the Penn State game, 29%. Okay. This guy's over 50%. He's thrown 3 interceptions. All 3 are not under pressure. None. I mean, it's a great question John asked.
It doesn't even make any sense.
But the stats don't match it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, it's like, when you got a kid who's an athletic quarterback, I think Lego is, he's no Trace McSorley, but the guy's athletic enough, and You know, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they do this Saturday.
And Peyton, the back that they use a lot, is an athletic quarterback. I mean, so you got two guys to get ready for here.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you pressure them and force them into mistakes, or do you sit back and give them a lot less coverage to look at it and let them make some mistakes and just kind of blanket it out and send 3 or 4 guys at it? We'll see how they go about it this Saturday.
And Indiana's also a 36% team on third down as well, which is interesting considering how they throw the ball. Film Room with Jay Paterno is next.
We are back on the Blue-White Tailgate, and we go in the film room with Jay Paterno. It's brought to you by Beer Belly's Beverage. And look, this is an intriguing matchup, Jay. I mean, look, Indiana gave Ohio State, the Buckeyes, all kinds of fits early in the year. They gave Penn State fits last year. And this is the interesting part of it, because jury's always out on a two-headed monster, the two-quarterback system.
Yep.
It's working for them so far. I'm not going to say it's going to work for them all year long, but so far it's been working for the Hoosiers. Why so on the offense?
Well, you know, it's a change of pace, and it gives you two different things you got to get ready for on defense. So that's really the reason it does. And we talk about change of pace. Let's take a look at this graphic. This is going to be a definite change of pace from last week against Iowa. These guys are at 75 plays a game. They ran 95 against Ohio State. And you have Lego as your pocket quarterback, and you have Ramsey as your runner play action guy. So Penn State's defense got to be ready for a faster tempo. Let's take a look at just some of the things that are going to be problem matchups. If you're a fan watching the game on TV or in the stadium, you want to look at the wide-out matchup on the outside. They are big on the outside, 6'4", 220 plus. Their slot guy, who looks small on TV because he's next to them, but he's 6 feet 195. And so they're going to give you all kinds of problems. And they love the one-on-one matchups. They throw the back shoulder fade. They throw the fade over the top. Let's take a look at this against Ohio State. And this is a talented secondary. And here's the throw. And right there makes the adjustment. Cobbs makes great adjustments on the ball, gave them fits. And that's going to be a matchup problem. Now, you get in the trip sets and you want to start to play the run game and you want to motion your secondary move after the snap. They're going to get, again, look for that one-on-one. So anytime you see Indiana in one of these trip sets with the one-on-one backside, watch for the pass game. Now here, they threw the back shoulder fade on the last one. Here they're going to sell the fade and make a stop and throw the curl route and take a look. And again, with big wideouts, you look at the top, it gets physical, the hands get involved, and as soon as this ball is completed, you see Ohio State's corners complaining about the push-off. Probably was. But you know what? Doesn't get called. Now, to make that adjustment, Ohio State and Penn State, to take care of those one-on-one matchups and give some help over the top, they go to 2 deep. What that now does, it isolates their slot receiver on your linebacker. They throw the underneath route and get an up and back on them. Take a look at how this works. So now you'll see those safeties are coming off the hash to help the outside guys. All of a sudden now you got a linebacker on a wideout. They put him in there. Nice little easy pass. It's still only 5 or 6 yards downfield, gets a big play. Now, we talked about the backup quarterback, Ramsey. Change of pace. He's become more involved in the offense. Again, he gives you something different. You're not going to see Lego do some of this. You'll see a quick play action pass here. Take a look at this now. They make a quick fake on here. Comes out, pulls the ball out, makes the throw. Now, it gets tipped, but again, it's just a change of pace, change of the pocket. So Penn State's defense got to be aware when he gets in the game, and that changes the way you call your defense.
And the Nittany Lions have had the opportunity to get some takeaways. If they get a chance to get some, they better catch the ball because they could really use some turnovers in this particular game.
Yes, you want to get this offense off the field.
You don't normally associate defense with Indiana, but Coach Allen is a defensive guy, and they did a great job bottling up Saquon Barkley. Not everybody can say that. Why were they successful with that last year?
Well, they schemed Penn State very, very well. We'll talk about that in a minute. When you look at, take a look at the graphic here. There are 9 guys back on that defense, and what they did against Barkley last year in Penn State's run game, 77 total rushing yards, and they're going to come in with a lot of confidence. A lot of guys in secondary have played a lot of football. Let's take a look at their base defense. They start out with a two safeties high, and in their base defense, they're in a nickel package. So this is not like Iowa where you've got a linebacker out here. You've got a little better athlete out here that's ready to play. Their middle linebacker is very talented. And again, they're going to play 2 safeties high and be able to adjust to some of these things. We'll take a look at what they do here in the video. Again, they're getting back there. They're playing the underneath stuff, keeping everything in front of them. They come up and make tackles. And again, that frustrated Penn State last week, no question about it, that Iowa made them patient. Now, how did they scheme Penn State last year? One of the things they started to do in that game was they read where the offset back is. So here the back is to the right. Last year, Penn State was coming up, making calls, and they were blitzing that side. So what they're going to do is they're going to bet that the run game is going to be predominantly this side or inside here and not outside. So they're going to blitz from the edge, and that creates an extra guy here for them. and they do a little stunt up front, so it messes up your blocking. Take a look at the video here. Again, you see him come right off the edge. Now, what Ohio State's doing, they're just trying to throw a screen off that blitz. If Penn State does that, that can help them. Now, one of the other things they do, which is a little different, is they spy. And against the quarterback who's mobile, like Trace McSorley, on your third down situations, he's going to make, you'll watch him, he's just going to take a look at that quarterback and shadow him, take a look at the video. Back to pass, they got everybody covered downfield. He's just staring right at Barrett right there, and I think you're going to see the same thing this week in third down situations against McSorley, take away the quarterback.
And spying J.T. Barrett is pretty good practice to go after Trace McSorley for sure.
Absolutely.
Look, it's an experienced team. It's a dangerous team offensively, defensively. Maybe the difference is the crowd and the emotion. That's college football. You know, you got to get your crowd behind you. It could be the difference in this one.
Well, I think it's going to be important that people get there early, get loud, make it difficult for Indiana to call their plays, change things at the line, but also give that, you know, when you come off an emotional game like last week and you come down, it's easy to have a little bit of a letdown. So I think it's going to be important, and they've got to be able to you know, really get after Indiana early, put some doubt in their mind. Because this game, if they hang in this game like last year, everybody forgets with 11 minutes to go, it was 31-28 last year. If they allow Indiana to hang around, they're going to start to get that confidence. If their quarterbacks get hot, it could be a long afternoon. But, you know, any win in the Big Ten is a good win. You know, people got to stop complaining because we don't look pretty, that kind of stuff. Just win the games.
Absolutely. We'll see how Saquon Barkley bounces back from 43 touches. We'll see how physical he's going to be able to be and resting all that. And any Big Ten win is big. You can't just look past Indiana and Northwestern in the next 2 weeks and go, oh, win. They got to get it done on the field. All right, Jay Paterno in the film room. Thanks for that. More Blue White Tailgate after this.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate. Steve and Trey, and now in the studio with us, Brad Spider Caldwell.
The world famous Brad Spider Caldwell.
Spider, welcome.
Thanks, guys. It's really a pleasure to be here.
All right.
This is great.
This is, you had a lot of input to the uniform that we're going to see on Saturday here in Beaver Stadium. For you, what were a couple of items right away that on your checklist were a must to have on this uniform?
Well, right away, I thought definitely the numbers on the side of the helmet. I think when you think back, a lot of our fans really seem to relate to the 60s, early 70s. And that's really, you think of Joe's 68, 69 teams. I think that really paved the way for Penn State national prominence, you know. And so when you look back, you know, definitely the numbers on the helmets. And I love the stripe on the pants, too. And I think that also because that was such a strong, you know, a long stretch of an era when we had the stripes. So combining the two, and it was really 1 year of overlap where we had both the numbers and the stripe, which would have been 66, 67, but definitely having those two things, I think, is the real symbolic part of the early.
Is there anything from Trey's era in there that we can bank on here?
Well, we did. You know, they got the little white trim on the collar or on the sleeve. You know, so that's a Trey era. You know?
Yeah.
So of course, you know, he had to take his guns. You know, he would tie his guns up. You know, he'd take tape and roll it up so you'd never see the white trim. Trying to show everything he possibly could.
Which wasn't much, by the way.
Much from his guns, yes.
In fact, he's tempted right now with the suit coat.
Yeah, exactly.
Trouble I always had in those 86 guys is, you know, they like those jerseys kind of up a little bit above their bellies, you know. So you had him and Sweeney and their red bellies hanging out in the cold. You know, that was a little scary, but
Yeah. Scary now even thinking
probably
about it.
because of you guys that we made the NCAA rule of jerseys have to be tucked in.
Is that right? So that's a rule?
It is a rule. It's been a rule for a while. They have to be tucked inable, we'll say. Now, the jerseys we're using now actually are belt length, but you don't really notice it because they have elastic around them that kind of grabs to your hips. But they're long enough that you could put them in your pants if you had to, but they kind of blossom up, you know, just around your waist length. But they're really great because you don't have that. Notice you don't have that like V or the hanging out anymore on the back, you know, and the long tail wasn't hanging out there on their rear ends. So it's kind of nice. It's a clean looking, nice jersey.
So you're saying that I had something to do with that, is what you're saying?
Hey, you know what?
The NCAA just came in and said, you know what, Trey?
We're your bright red gut in November, running down, you know, and you know, regular tackle. So.
Yeah. TV ratings have gone down since.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just want to let you know that. How much thought and research did you have to put into this to give the input that you did?
Well, it was really not a ton. I mean, we kind of, it was a thought we had early on, and it actually kind of started with Coach O'Brien. Coach O'Brien, when the sanctions came down, he was looking just to throw a bone to the players.
Yeah.
And he really wanted to, make this the best experience he could for the guys. Let's have some fun. And we looked into, what can we do maybe to bling up the uniform technically. So I had always thought about, and we had always thought, wouldn't it be neat to do a retro kind of a jersey and uniform. And so we kind of put together, we were just going to maybe do the numbers on the helmets and the stripe, like I said. And that was the two key elements that I was definitely thinking needed to be. Coach Franklin, when he came in, Coach O'Brien obviously never did it.
Yeah.
And, so Coach Franklin came in and we were talking about the uniform and he was getting the history and, from me and whatnot. And so I had told him about, the thoughts with that jersey or that uniform, and he said, yeah, he really wanted to do that. He thought it was a great idea. So he ended up taking it to the next level, adding, with the socks, the blue sock with the white striping, the white shoes, which was part of our history as well for a little bit. They put in the logo, the way the logo is on the, they're going to put on the collar and whatnot. So, he definitely, and the gray face mask. We weren't going to do the gray face mask. We were just going to, again, do the numbers and stripes. So.
Now, they've already changed out the gray face masks on the helmets. Not in practice. They have game helmets.
They do, and it's the first year they've done that. Yes.
Yeah, they've got game helmets. That's already been done. So even if you saw in practice, they're still wearing the blue. No.
Yeah.
You had to put 42s on every helmet in 2012 when Mike Monty got hurt, but you only did it on one side. How long did that take to do?
Well, yeah, when it was kind of a last-minute thought. Coach O'Brien had said, when the team captains wanted to do something for Mowdy with his, that injury that he had the week before. So it was not until Tuesday evening he approached me about, can we, do this? The guys want to put his number on the helmet, and I said, can we just do it on one side, which would make it easier and quicker. But we couldn't get the numbers, in time. So I had our sign shop on campus do them. They got them to me by Thursday evening, but and they were fine, but we didn't have that many, and they were very thin.
Yeah.
If you made a mistake and you ripped them off to move them, they ripped. So I was nervous to have my crew do it, so I ended up doing them all myself. It took me 5 hours the night before the game, putting 42s on the helmet. So that next day when Mowdy came in off the bus, Mike Zordich was bringing him in, and I had all the helmets lined up with the 42s facing out, and they walk in, and he was the first one off the bus, and as soon as he saw him, Mowdy, his head went down, and he darted right for the shower, and he was basically pretty emotional in there and tearing up. And so he comes back out, and I said, Mike, you better appreciate you son of a gun. So I spent 5 hours here last night putting these on. He laughed, gave me a big hug, so it was pretty cool.
Well, they're on both sides. Imagine how long that took. Spider, what a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome, guys.
Thanks.
We'll take a look at Indiana as we continue after this. Big changes at Indiana. The big change is before the bowl game last year, they decided not to renew Kevin Wilson, who's now the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. They moved Tom Allen up from defensive coordinator. And by the way, as you pointed out, last year's game, Todd, they defended Penn State really well, and he was the coordinator.
Yeah, the guys made some strides with Indiana. You never think defense when you think of the Hoosiers, for sure. They've always been a little bit dangerous with their offense, but defensively they did make some strides. The guy was up for the Frank Broyles Award as one of the top assistants in the country. So, had Penn State in a little bit of trouble last year. We got out of it, scored 45 points to win the game, but this is a dangerous team coming. I think the biggest advantage we have is playing at home.
Yeah.
If you had to do this game back-to-back on the road, Big Ten games, it would be a little bit more dangerous.
That's a good point. It is a good point. Let's take a look at the Tom Allen file. Tom Allen, in his first full year as the head coach at Indiana, he served as their head coach in the bowl game last year. Jevon Stone, Penn State's video coordinator, played for Tom Allen when he was a high school coach, as a matter of fact. And you can see what he's done during the course of his career. And he's done a good job. A lot of people think he'll recruit well in Indiana because he has such great connections with a lot of Indiana coaches. And the defense has certainly made strides. They've never really been known as a great defensive team. They've actually become a good defensive team under him.
Yeah, and I think that the key is, it's kind of like anything else, certainly in college football, is recruiting. The fact is they're recruiting more athletes on defense. They've got a bunch of athletic guys. Their inside linebacker, I think, is really, really good. He'll be a first-team All-American. In my opinion, high school wrestler, 3-time state champ or whatever. But it's getting those guys to come and commit to Indiana, which is going to make the difference. You can't win if you don't have the talent, Todd.
And Trey, it seems inconceivable. Well, last year, 33 carries, 58 yards for Saquon Barkley. So a lot of people talk about, you got to stop Saquon Barkley. They were able to do it last year. So, I mean, that's got to be impressive for a team to be able to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, and also it helped the Indiana cause a bit. That's the game where Trace McSorley got hurt his ankle, kind of limited his mobility a little bit in the RPO, and thus more carries for Barkley. Matt Hoff up front, good player. The guy you're referencing is T. Gray Scales, number 8, good football player. I kind of feel like early in his career he was better against the pass than the run. Now he's really good against both.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is he led the country in tackles for losses last year. He's very active. I mean, again, I referenced a high school wrestler. You know, obviously he's a tough guy, and you know, if you want to be good on defense, you have to be good up the middle.
And Rashard Fan at corner. This guy's a good lockdown corner. He uses his hands a lot, but he also is a very good lockdown corner.
Well, if you use your hands on every single play, they're not going to call it every single play. It's like the Seattle Seahawks mentality. Just do it every play. They're not going to throw the flag all the time. But look, you got to challenge guys like that. You probably will stay away from them for a little bit of that time. But Penn State has big enough receivers that they can go downfield and test them. Maybe you get a flag from them.
And one of those big receivers happens to be Mike Gesicki. All right, he fits that mold really well, and talked about going up against that Indiana secondary and defense.
I watched the Ohio State game just, you know, because of the similarities in our offenses, you know, how they, you know, defended them. You know, they have a ton of, you know, talented players, whether it's in their linebackers, which, you know, I was looking at different guys that could cover me, or their safeties. You know, but honestly, you know, they have talented guys everywhere in their secondary, just like, you know, the player that you mentioned. So they, you know, I mean, they're, you know, a Big Ten, you know, a big-time college football team just like us. So, you know, we're preparing just like that. You know, excited for the opportunity to play against them, and, you know, to go up against a tough challenge like that.
Tom Allen certainly very important in putting together the defense for Indiana. The one change they made is now Mike DeBoard is the offensive coordinator. And for James Franklin, he likes the touches that he's brought to the Indiana offense.
I think he's done a really good job of coming in. You're talking about a veteran, experienced coach. And what I think he did a really good job of is saying, okay, these are the things in my background that I'm very comfortable doing, and we're going to run those. But there's some things that they did in the last offense that the quarterback has confidence in, the receivers have confidence in, and we're going to keep doing those things. You know, I'm going to add them to what I do. I think.
And getting Simi Cobbs back at wide receiver, that's been a big plus. When we talk that back shoulder throw, they're really good at that.
6'4", 220 pounds, and he plays wide receiver. The guy did not play last year. He had a medical red shirt. All 10 honorable mention back in 2015, 60 receptions. He is someone to listen for during the game and to look out for. They will go to him whenever they need some big plays.
Against Ohio State and Virginia, Trey, no running threat at all, 0. Then they put the freshman Morgan Ellison in. I know it's Georgia Southern, but he gained 186. So now, at least coming into the game, they must feel like they have at least some semblance of balance there.
Yeah, I mean, he's an athletic guy. He's quick, shifty. You know, you can't be one-dimensional now in college football. You have to be able to run the ball and pass the ball. They can clearly pass the ball with Kevin Wilson, you know, basically recruiting that entire team. You know, with Ellison, they give him a different dimension, and it's going to be important for Penn State to be able to tackle. We've been talking about this all year. I think they really have to work on their tackling, and if they don't tackle well, he's going to break a big play for them.
And you're also going to need really good coverage in this game. There are going to be 3 punt returns for touchdowns in this game. DeAndre Tompkins comes in with 1. Ja'Shawn Harris has 2. He gives them jump in the return game.
Do not underestimate the importance of special teams in this game overall. Now, the conference schedule starts to get you, as you get deeper into the season, I should say, injuries start to take an effect. So their punt returner, Ja'Shawn, he's banged up. We'll see how he can do. But from Penn State's side of things, look, they got issues right now with kicker, with Tyler Davis. So you got to look out for special teams in that part of it. And then, of course, you mentioned DeAndre Tompkins. So on the positive side of things, he could potentially break one as well. But special teams could be a big factor in this ballgame.
Oh, and by the way, I'll add one quick thing. We talked about the safety in one of the previous segments. That was set up by Blake Gilligan putting the punt to the 1-yard line down by Irvin Charles. So there's all these little things that add up in the game that end up being big things. Coming up, we don't consider them little things. We consider the good, the bad, and the ugly big things, plus our predictions as we continue with more after this. Well, we get more comments on this segment than any other because everyone loves the good, the bad, and the ugly. This week there are going to be two goods. There'll be no bad, but there is one ugly. I get to start. This was at my request. I wanted to get this in there. This is a weekend where Jack Ham, my broadcast partner for the last 18 seasons, is going to be honored. It's part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Road to the Hall series, and he picked Penn State. You think about what he's done during the course of his lifetime, whether it happens to be as a college Hall of Famer, Pro Hall of Famer, successful businessman, and of course, I strongly feel he's the best analyst in all of football. And, you know, for however well we do along the way, you always want to work with people who make you better. And it's not just a season or a game, but every play he makes me better. And he's done all of this with absolutely no ego at all. He's as down to earth as they get. No one deserves it more. Todd?
All right. At our request, the rest of the crew, I get to do another good instead of a bad. And you don't see this coming, Mr. Colleague. We've got something for you of Mr. Steve Jones being honored.
Steve, on behalf of the entire State College Spikes organization, I just want to congratulate you on winning the 2017 Warner Fussell Award for Broadcasting Excellence from the New York Penn League. There is no one more deserving of this honor. It has been a privilege and a pleasure for me personally to work alongside you for the last 10 seasons, and looking forward to many more, including an all-star summer next year here at Medler Field at LeBron Park. All of us here at the State College Spikes are honored to work alongside you, and it's a privilege to have you as part of our organization. Congratulations, Steve.
Thanks, Joe. Wow. Ditto. Didn't see that one coming, did you? It's all warm and fuzzy here now until we get to Trey, right? Well, congratulations, Steve.
I'll just say very quick, the Spikes, you know, Chuck Greenberg, Jason Dombach, Scott Walker, and especially working with that guy, Joe Putnam. They do great work, Dave Baker, everybody. Okay. Now let's take the show down a notch and get to the ugly.
Okay, the warm and fuzzy, it's over. Okay, so if you
we all got a trophy.
If you want warm and fuzzy, this is not the segment for you. So I've got two uglies. I've got college basketball paying their players through shoe companies. I know you're shocked that Auburn, who basically paid Cam Newton's father $250,000, is implicated in this scandal. Oh, and by the way, USC is also. So USC with O.J. Simpson, they gave us O.J. Simpson, they gave us Reggie Bush, and now they're involved in another basketball scandal. That's ugly. The second ugly I have, and it's like really personal to me, is this whole notion of kneeling for the national anthem. Now, I understand people wanting to protest certain things, but I think there is a time and a place for that. I don't think it is the time nor the place to do that. You can say what you want about Jerry Jones. I think he's an idiot, but the fact is that the way that he did it with his team, and he was out front, they kneeled to say, hey, you know, we're protesting something. This is what we believe as a team. But once the anthem was started to be played, they all stood up. You should stand up for the national anthem. I just don't understand why people don't do that. It's very disrespectful.
Okay, let's get to our number one Cycle Center picks in a limited time here. I've got Georgia, Tennessee. And I'm going to take Georgia in this game. Tennessee just has shown nothing so far to me this season to warrant picking them as a winner. Wisconsin, Northwestern's yours.
Northwestern at Wisconsin, two great programs, two great schools. I think Bucky's got too much for him. They lead the country in point differential, 17 touchdowns to 3. I like Wisconsin.
Mississippi State, Auburn.
I'll make this easy. I went Mississippi State last week. They lost. I'm going against them this week. I'll go with Auburn at home.
Clemson, Virginia Tech, Jay.
This is obviously a big one between Clemson and Virginia Tech in Lane Stadium. Tough place to play at night. That crowd is going to be jacked, and I know I should pick Clemson, but I'm going with the Turkeys. I'm going with the Hokies, whatever they are. I'm taking them at home against Clemson because I think it's about time. They're about ready to make that jump.
Okay, Jay, now keys of the game. Trey.
Keys to the game is I'd like to see them with less penalties and getting off to a fast start.
Todd?
Field position. Keep winning that field position battle, you'll win the game.
Turnovers, giveaway, takeaway will be important in this one. If you can force them into a couple of turnovers, change the field position as you talked about, I think it's going to make a big difference in the game. All right, so kickoff is set for 3:30 on Saturday. Trey will be signing autographs all day. So for Todd, Trey, I'm Steve, Jay Paterno. Thanks for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate Show.